In this last week's Parsha B'Shalach, I would like to discuss the Parsha of the Mun. This is everybody is interested. There are two major topics that people are interested in, that they're looking for scholars or some sort of eitzes. That's either Parnossah or health. So,
depends what age you are. Right?
Also true.
I like that.
Young, you want money. When you get older, you want health.
I don't know if the Parnossah hasn't gone
Wealth
away.
or health?
The Parnossah hasn't gone away yet.
So it's very well known that this Parsha of Mun is a Segulah for Parnossah. So I want to discuss the Mun. Now, first of all, we're all trying to figure out what it looked like. So it says, K'zera Gad Lavon. K'zera Gad Lavon. Now, what is Zera Gad? It's like the seeds of God. So Rashi says that it's coriander. Coriander. So I didn't know what coriander is, so I found it.
Coriander?
Coriander. This is a picture of coriander. It's little tiny balls. Now, doesn't look like that. I don't have color, so
White.
no, those are like light brown seeds. But then it says it's like kukfor. It's like the frost. The frost. That means it's like sleet. Or this. So if it's that size, if it's round little things and it's little balls, so then it's going to be like this. This is called gruffle.
No, it's like a mission. They took like a mission. It was probably a big piece.
No, they made it into bread.
But they made it into bread. It didn't come.
No, they came like this.
It came a lot of small pieces.
And it's white. It's K'zera Gad Lavan. So this is fairly good.
And they made it into wheat, and then they took lecha mishnah.
They made it into flour, and then they baked it. It says you bake it. And then
It says like two lecha mishnah. Oh, they took double.
Yeah, the whole portion. They had two portions. So the question is, now there's a very famous, very, very, very famous. Everybody's looking for a Segulah. Everybody's looking for a Segulah, and the easier the better. And let's get it out of the way. So they came up with the Segulah. They say it on Tuesday. You say the Parshas Haman on Tuesday of Parshas B'Shalach. Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum.
You don't have to go to work anymore.
Right, and that's it. And that's your whole Segulah.
They claim it from the Ribbonov.
It is from the Ribbonov. It is recorded from the Ribbonov, and
They say the Satmar Rebbe said all the schools work. They work until 9 o'clock in the morning.
Now, the problem is this is very, very recent. It was, according to the article that I have here, it was published in 1991 in a sefer. And that's when it became popular. It wasn't popular until 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Until 45 years ago, this Segulah was not popular. It was hardly known, except by the Talmidim, maybe the Hasidim of the Ribbonov. But all of a sudden, somebody published it in a sefer. The Ribbonov said to do this, and I never heard of it until around 45 years ago. All of a sudden, everybody started doing it. The Tuesday of Parshas B'Shalach, you got to Shnei Mikra Vecha Targum. I don't know where he got it from.
Some people
No, Parshas
have
Haman.
written down the Parshas Haman to say every day, twice a day, with the Targum. It's a Talmud of the Bo brings it down.
No, not to say with the Targum. Talmud of the Gra? This I never heard. I will tell you what is valid. A valid Segulah, the real Segulah. So it's brought down, and I told you this last year. It's brought down in the Mechaber. The Mechaber brings down this Segulah, and he says, Tov Lomar Parshas Akeda and Parshas Haman. It's a good idea. It's a good idea to say Parshas Haman. Now the Mishnah Berurah, he's quoting previous halacha authorities. Parshas Haman. Now what's the idea of saying Parshas Haman? People are looking for the easiest Segulah. Just say it. I'm Yotzi. I did it. The Mishnah Berurah says that's not the parsha, that's not the Segulah. The Segulah is you have to think about what you're reading. You read Parsha Amon, he says, Kadesh Yamin, Shekol Mizoynoisav Boyin Bahashkocha Protis. You're not working. Your Parnossah is coming Bahashkocha Protis. So Kodesh Baruch Hu is giving you your Parnossah. Kidiksiv. Hamarba lo hidif amamit lo hichser. Lahoirois, to teach you. So if you think that I was extreme, I got this from the Mishnah Berurah. She'ein ribo yishtadlis moyel me'uma. If you're working overtime, now you have to have a job. Kol asher taseh. We have psukim. We have the chavos halavavis, all the meforshim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants people to be busy, working. How much? A normal hishtadlis. But a person works overtime, he neglects his family, he neglects his kids, he neglects his health, he neglects his making a seder in limud, in Torah. Ein hashtadlis moyel ma'uma. Your parnossah is set from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Every year your parnossah is set on Rosh Hashanah, and that's how much you're going to get. And it doesn't matter how much extra work you put in, that's what you're going to get. So therefore he says, don't work overtime. Spend time with your wife. It's a good idea to have supper with your wife every day, and spend a little time with the kids, read them a bedtime story, and then have a chavrusa at night, and you have time to live. Don't become a workaholic with two or three jobs, like many people do. Now this is where the Mishnah Berurah brings down the Segulah. Kol ha'oimer parshas Haman muvtach lo shelo yismayatu mizoynoisav. He's promised. Muvtach. It's sure. It's a sure thing. Shelo yismayatu, his parnossah will not decrease. He'll have enough parnossah. Doesn't say he's going to be rich. It's not a Segulah to become rich. Nobody says you're going to become rich, but you will have what you need. Lo yismayatu mizoynoisav. Now where does this come from? Where does this come from? This, huh? Yeah. So this is brought down in the Prisha. Prisha is a parish on the tour, and it says, "My Rebbe, Zeloshana, my Rebbe." That in the Yerushalmi, the brachas kol hayom parshas man kol yom muftach shelo yismayim ben zaynosav. Kadei sheyamin shekol ben zaynosav boyin lo b'ashkocha. So this Mishnah Berurah is coming from the Prisha. The Prisha was a Talmud of both the Ramah and the Marshal. Those big people. He's big people. But he got it from his Rebbe. I don't know which Rebbe, whether it's the Ramah or the Marshal. But where'd they get it from? So the original source, what they bring down, is from the Tashbitz. The Tashbitz was a contemporary of the Rosh. He's a Talmud of the Rami Rutenberg. He's a Talmud of the Rami Rutenberg, the Tashbitz, and he says he found a Yerushalmi. Kol ha'omer parshas Haman b'kol yom muvtach shelo yismaytu mizaynosav. Then he adds two words which the Mishnah Berurah left out. Va'ani orev. I take responsibility. I'm the orev.
We have this Yerushalmi? Like this is...
No, they can't. There are several Yerushalmis that some reason we don't have. We don't have all the. We don't have this Yerushalmi. We don't have. People have looked for it. It's Yerushalmi in brachas. They say it's Yerushalmi in brachas. They've looked for it. They don't know. It's not in our version of the Yerushalmi. But this is the Tashbitz. He says it's in the Yerushalmi. He's very reliable. He's a contemporary of the Rosh. And he adds those words, Ani Orev.
Who says Ani Orev?
The Tashbitz. The Mashma, he tried it and it worked. Ani Orev. I'm taking responsibility. I'm the guaranteeing. It's guaranteed.
Who said it worked? Was it bad? Maybe he worked because it worked, because he was doing other stuff. You can't.
If he says it's a school of...
That's not his copy.
No.
Rabbi, in the sefer I just sent you by Rabbi Benjamin Greengrass, he has a way shortened version of the.
I cannot guarantee how scholars work. I cannot guarantee how scholars work. Whether the scholar works only if you say the whole thing. People, it's very, very hard for people to read the whole thing. I understand it's long. The main thing is whether you're going to do the long version or the short version. Of course, it's better to do the long version because that's what's said. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of schooler to it. Scholars have a mechanism which is above and beyond the realm of nature. Maybe there is a schooler besides, but the purpose of this schooler is that you should be mamin in it. So if you read the short version and you concentrate on it and you learn it, that you're mamin, that everything is b'hashgacha pratis, and hamar below. If you work harder, you're not going to get. You're not going to get more. And if you work less, you're not going to get less. You're going to get what you need. Everything's b'hashgacha pratis. That's the main thing, to believe in that. You have to have bitachon. This is the parsha of bitachon. Now this is a very interesting parsha. What was the parsha of the month? So I discussed this, the whole history last year. Let's a quick recap. Klal Yisrael, they were told to make the Korban Pesach. They had to bake matzahs for that night, eat matzahs with the Korban Pesach. They made a seder the night that they went out, and the whole night they were kneading dough. That was their seder l'derech, the picnic basket, for the trip. So they were kneading dough, and they had to run out. Lo yochel ismameya. They had to run out, and they didn't have time to finish baking it. And when they got to Sukkot, they stopped and they baked it in the sun, and that's the meal that they had. That was the seder l'derech that they had. Now Parshas Aman is a month later. It says that it was on Tesvav of Iyar, this Chodesh Hasheni. Tesvav of Chodesh Hasheni. So this is a month later after they left. So the Meforshim say that what were they eating the whole month? I mean, how long? They had a box of matzahs that they made. How many kilos? How many kilo of matzah did they bake that night? 2 kilo, 3 kilo. So how long does it last? The matzah that they baked that night for the whole family. How much can you bake? 2 boxes, 3 boxes, 5 boxes. So it lasted a month. They were nibbling on the matzah, and it was enough to get them through a month. No complaining. There was no complaining. That itself was a miracle. That itself was a miracle.
They didn't complain.
And that's also a miracle. When Jews don't complain, is a miracle. Yes. And then all of a sudden it ran out. So on Tesvav Iyar, a month later, the bread ran out. And it says in the pasuk, they got to Midbar Sin, Asher ben Elim ben Sinar, b'chamisha asu yom l'chodesh hasheni, vayiloinu kol hadas b'nei Yisrael al Moshe. And they said, "Oy, if we only would have died in Eretz Mitzrayim, why are you bringing us into the Midbar to die? We're going to die of starvation." They started complaining. And that's when Kodesh Baruch Hu came to Moshe, and it says, "I heard their complaints, and I'm going to rain down bread." First of all, I want to make a diuk in this pasuk. Before this, they ran out of water. They ran out of water. They went from Yam Suf and they went Midbar Shur, Parnossah, and they couldn't drink the water because it was bitter. Vayilonu ha'am. There's a very famous Or HaChaim HaKodesh, and also the Ramban also says a similar thing. When it says that the Am is talking about the lower, the Or HaChaim HaKodesh says it's talking about the Erev Rav. The Ramban says it's talking about the lower level, lower caste of people. The simple people, right? Not the tzaddikim. When it says Bnei Yisrael, It's talking about a higher class of Yid, the Bnei Yisrael, the Tzaddikim. Yes, there were different groups in Klal. Not everybody wasn't homogeneous, everybody the same. There was, like it is today, you have some people who are simpler, less from, more from. So the better people are called Bnei Yisrael, and the lesser people are called the Am. So who complained by the water, by Morah? Vayilonu ha'am. Only the Am. The Tzaddikim did not, the Bnei Yisrael did not complain. All of a sudden we get to Parshas Amun. They get to Parshas Amun, and they ran out of food. The matzah was finished. Vayilonu kol adas Bnei Yisrael. Everybody was complaining. This must have been a very, very difficult matzah. This is a very difficult thing. Everybody's complaining. We're here, you're going on a trip, and you pack up everything, and then you get delayed, and the food runs out, and there's no makolet in the area. You're stranded in a deserted place, and there's no stores, no nothing. And what are we going to eat? We're going to starve to death. And Akash Baruch was very angry at them. Zok Rav Moshe Feinstein.
I would have thought that you would have been more likely to complain about the water than the food, especially as it was before.
But they didn't.
Yeah, I know, but I mean...
It's interesting. That's an interesting ha'ara. Okay, I can't answer that question. Why the food more than... But this is what's going on. This is what we have over here. By the water, it was the Am complained, and by the food, it was called Bnei Yisrael. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, the fact that they complained was a terrible chet. Think about it. They had just spent a whole year of 10 makas. They saw how Kodesh Baruch Hu was fighting for them. And he was controlled. He controlled the water system with the Nile. He controlled the ground with the Kingdom. And he controlled all the animals. He had the frogs and the Orov. And he controlled the bacteria, the Dever. And everybody got sick with the boils. Right, everything was happening, and then he controlled the weather with the borod, and he controlled light and dark. That's going into the real physics of the whole bria. He controlled the dark. They turned light into darkness. He brought everything darkness, and he controlled the neshamas. He was able to tell who is a bechor and who's not a bechor. He was able to specify who is a bechor and who is not a bechor. So we saw that Akash Baruch Hu showed that he was in control of everything. And then they got to Yam Suf, and it says, Ra Shifcha al Yam, Masha Lo Ra Yecheskel ben Buzi. What was that? Why did the Shifcha al Yam see more than Yecheskel ben Buzi? Because they saw that Akash Baruch Hu turned nature inside out to split the Yam. A Yam does not split. And they walked. They had wall on this side of water and a wall of water on this side, and it was dry land. It was in all the movies that you see of the Ten Commandments, of the splitting of the sea. They're walking on mud. There's the drips of water dripping down the rocks. I see it's coming down the sides of the mountain. They have to walk through the water, and it's slippery, and it was total dry land. By Yabosha, it was Kodesh Baruch Hu, he froze the water underneath them. He made a wall, and according to the Medrash, the wall was sprouting fruit and everything, and they were able to take a straw and go in there and get a sip of water if they needed it. It was tremendous miracles. Everybody came out and they went wild. They went wild. That's what the Oz Yashir was. They went wild. The whole people. How many people were there? We're not talking about, like the movies. They got maybe 2,000 people. That's all they can gather to in the movie, for the props. We're talking about 600,000 men. And then you got the women, and then you got the children, and then you got the elderly. you had like between 2 to 3 million people, besides the Erev Rav, which was another 1,200,000. According to the lower level, Rabbi Yishmael was 1,200,000, and Rabbi Kiva held it was 2,400,000 of Erev Rav, just the Erev. So we're talking about of Yidden, we have between 2 and 3 million. Plus, you had like 5 million people, and they went through the Yam Suf. And the fact they got through, it's a city moving, and they got through in one night. I mean, that itself is a miracle. They were able to get through in one night. And all of a sudden, they see all the Egyptians dead on the Yam. They went crazy. The whole nation went wild, and they did Oz Yoshir. V'aminu b'Hashem b'Moshe Avdoi. They had total emunah. And now here it is a month later, and they lost it. Don't you think a Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to look what he did? You were worried on the Yam. And the Yam, it says that they cried out, how are we going to get through the Yam? So Kodesh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell them to go. Go where? There's water there. There was the shir I gave last year. Kodesh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu said, everybody, go. Go where? There's water there. Can't go into the water. Kodesh Shem said, go. When they went into the water, then it split. So they had to have a emunah that they were going into the water and that the water would split. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh said that with that total emunah, that total betochen, what Kodesh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu that they should do, therefore the schus of betochen, the water split. So in the schus of their betochen, the water can split. Kodesh Baruch Hu can totally, play games, with nature, make the whole nature different. Don't you think he's going to find a way to give you food in the desert? What are you complaining about? This was a chet gadol. There should have been boiteach and a Kodesh Baruch Hu. He didn't take them out that they should die in the desert. He did all these miracles, they should die in the desert. What happened to these people? This was a terrible thing. This is a terrible thing. Says Reb Moshe, he asked the question, what would have happened if they hadn't complained? Why did they get the man? Like a good yid. If you complain, you get. Right? That's how Yidden are. The only way to get things is to complain, and then you get become a nudge, and then the guy's going to give it to you. You got to complain.
Rabbi said last year the bread would last until the very end. The matzah.
The matzah until the 30 days.
Until the very end. I thought.
No. It stopped at 30 days. The man kept on going. No. The matzah lasted until, this is what's brought down in the Medrash. The matzah lasted for 30 days. Then they ran out of the matzah, and then they complained, and then they got the man. That's what happened.
Maybe they need to eat it all after that.
Says Rav Moshe, you were just mechaven to Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein says, what would have happened if they hadn't complained? Kodesh Baruch Hu can make a miracle. You don't have to eat. Who says you have to eat? A malach has to eat. If they wouldn't have complained, and they would have had pure betochen, just like they can walk through a wall of water, they could have walked in the desert without eating. What are you complaining about? You're nervous? You're not going to have food? Don't think Kodesh Baruch Hu. They should have had such betochen. They should have had such betochen, and to prove it, look at their clothing. Look at their clothing. The guy, let's say he was 15 years old when he went out of Mitzrayim, right? Right? Now, kid, 15 years old, hey, can you get into your chasna suit? Can you get in?
After the drugs, I can't.
Huh? Yeah, I mean, like, come on,
They didn't know that then. It was only,
huh? And because they didn't, that's right, they didn't know.
There was only a month later.
No.
It didn't change
But
after a month. And
right,
also
that's
they
right.
had food.
That's right. But I'm asking, what would have happened?
We're going to need a new system.
What would have happened if they hadn't complained? So you see what happened when they didn't complain. They didn't complain about their clothes. Their clothes are getting dirty. It's been a month in the same clothes. I don't know how, whether they took a change of clothes or whatever they did. And they had but they didn't complain about the clothes. The clothes grew with them, and not only did the clothes grow with them, but the Anania covered was a dry cleaning service. Every morning they woke up and they put the clothes on. It was freshly laundered. It was a miracle because they didn't complain about the clothes. And the chasana suit that he wore when he was 20 years old, so when he's 60 years old, he's getting into Eretz Canaan, Eretz Yisrael, the same suit. The same suit. And if he was 5 years old, it grew with them. The same clothing. The same clothing. Totally amazing. The clothing grew with them because they didn't complain. That's what would have happened. That's Reb Moshe. So it's a very good idea. This is telling us that you have to read the Parshas Haman with kavanah to gain amuna.
You're saying that's b'diavad, though. Like, isn't by definition the Parshas Haman
B'diavad, because they complained. That's what Reb Moshe says. That's what Reb Moshe says. Why did they get now? The man itself was a miracle. We're going to get more into that. It was a miracle that this stuff came down and every day, and we'll talk more about that. But they were zochet to that miracle because they complained. You see, if you complain, you get. No, you would have gotten more if you hadn't complained.
You would have gotten nothing if you had complained.
No, you would have been on a higher madrega, right? You wouldn't have needed anything.
Sometimes nothing is moved.
Sorry, Rabbi, last interruption. Can you just explain what the difference between the complaint versus the tefillah? Like, having it said, please Hashem, that's what.
Yes, that's what Rashi says. Rashi says, what was Hashem so upset about? Don't complain. They complained to Moshe. What are you doing? What's up with it? Daven to Hashem. Daven to Hashem. Daven to Hashem. Turn to Hashem and daven. Hashem, I'm hungry. Hashem, I'm hungry. I didn't prepare this. This is the Yislonanu. They complain.
So that's not the same thing. The same, I'm hungry and I have something to eat.
That's Rashi says. That's what they.
That's not a complaint.
That's right. That's what Rashi says they should have said.
Right.
That's what Rashi said they should have davened. They should have said, "Please, I'm hungry." Don't complain. Ask. There's a famous story. I'm not sure if it's I think it's Rav Zusha. Everything's Rav Zusha. I'm not sure if it's Rav Elimelech or Rav Zusha. These are all the stories about either Rav Elimelech or Rav Zusha. Huh? So Rav Zusha, every day he learned, and he had a gabbai. He brought him lunch around 1 o'clock, and he brought him his food around 1 o'clock. Right before he brought him his food, so he was sitting and learning in the Beis Medrash with the chevra, and he turned his eyes to heaven and says, "Hashem, I'm hungry. Please bring me food," which is a mitzvah. They bring down, the Meforshim bring down, that even though you have a full kitchen, you have your wife is making dinner, and everything's about to go on there. When you sit down, before you eat, before you make the moitzi or whatever the bracha, before you sit down and eat, daven, Hashem, make sure I have enough food. It's brought down. That's the Hasidim and Menashe Ma'isa, the big tzaddikim did this. I'm not saying I do it, but it's a madrega. It's a madrega. So Rav Zusha did this, and he always said, "Hashem, I'm hungry," and the gabbai knew that was his cue to come in with a tray, and he put the tray down. Okay. So the gabbai, he says, "What is this ridiculous? He's davens to Hashem, and then I bring him the food. This is nonsense. Let him know who brings him the food. I prepared the food. I cooked it or whatever it is, and I prepared it, and I've got the tray, and I'm gonna. Tomorrow I'm not bringing the food. Tomorrow I'm not bringing the food. Okay. So he's waiting, right? So the next day he's waiting and waiting. What happened that night? The night that he decided he's not going to bring the food. So there was an usher came to town. An usher came to town, and he was a little bit haughty guy. In those days, they had everything was mud. The streets were mud, and everything. So the sidewalk was a wooden sidewalk, very narrow. And the usher, he's going to the inn, Now, at that time, at 3 o'clock in the morning, he happened to come into the city very, very late at night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And this old Yid in rags was coming the other way, and he was like, taking up the sidewalk, and the usher says, "Just get out of my way, you dirty," whatever it was. He was an old, this vagabond, like wearing kisser. So he knocked him out, and he went toppling into the mud, and he went into the inn, and he sat down, and the innkeeper woke up and gave him some schnapps to drink and to warm up, and was preparing a room for the usher, and he was laughing. Oh yeah, what happened is, there's this guy came and knocked him over, and he went toppling into the wood. He says, "Was he wearing a green kapata?" Yeah, he happened to be wearing a green kapata.
It's not green anymore.
He says, "Do you know who that was?" "No, it was just some vagabond." It wasn't a vagabond. It was the holy Rav Zusha going to the mikveh. And everybody knew about Rav Zusha. All the Hasidim knew about Rav Zusha. So, it was Rav Zusha. I have to try. I have to do amends. I have to after Mechila. What should I do? So the innkeeper said, "I'll tell you what you do. Every day around 1 o'clock, after morning Seder, so he lifts his eyes to heaven, he says, Ribboni Shalom, Zusha is hungry," and that's when you should come in with a tray full of, full of delicacies to eat, a full lunch. So next day, it comes 1 o'clock, and the Gabbai is waiting. He's behind the curtains. I want to see what happens with Zusha. He lifts his eyes up, and he says, "Hashem, I'm hungry," and then nothing happens. And Zusha lifted his eyes up, and he says, "Zusha's hungry," and the Gabbai is waiting for for his reaction, and all of a sudden, from the back door, in walks the usher with a tray full of food. So, ask. Zusha is hungry, right? Say, Zusha is hungry. I am hungry. Bani Shloim, I am hungry. Ask. Don't complain.
Right, but just to be clear, the Litvish version of that story is nobody came. He didn't need the food. That's the higher level, right, Rabbi? That's the Shemaisa. Okay.
So anyway, so there's the Talmud of the Mezritcha is the Or Meir, the Talmud of the Mezritcha. He says, everybody, this is an old minig. This Parshas Aman is an old minig. He says, I've seen so many people opening their mouths every day after davening or before davening, and they read the Parshas Aman, and then they go out to work, and nothing happens. What do you do with that? People say the Parshas Aman, and they follow the Segulah, and then nothing happens. They're still struggling the same way they were all the time. They come home, Reikim, the Chaserim. They don't have, in those days, especially at the time of the Hasidim, people were extremely poor, and it didn't work. The idea is not just to rattle it off. That's what people do. They rattle it off. I said my Segulah, I'm Yaitzi, I did my Segulah. It's not a Segulah you can just be Yaitzi. You can't just rattle it off. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. You have to be Mechaven, Lechazek Ba'atzma Bechinas B'tchoinoi. Don't just, and don't say that money doesn't come down from heaven. Money doesn't rain down from heaven. It certainly does. That's why it doesn't work. This is what the Ramban says about the Parshas Aman. Why did the Kadosh Baruch Hu give them the man? Hinei mamta lechem, leman anisecha ayelech b'soirasi. The Ramban says, it says in the pasuk in Parshas Eikev, "Amalchilcha b'amon b'midvar shelo yaducha avasecha leman anoischa leman ananoisecha." Why did I give you the man? First of all, you have to go through Inui. You have to go through a little bit of torment. and you have to go through a Nisoyin. But the result is going to be Leitivcha be'achrisecha. Nisoyin is that they don't have any food. There's nothing there except right in the man, and there's no makolet, there's no stores, no Walmarts, no Osherad, right? And it's to increase their betochen. The whole idea is to increase their betochen. The whole Parshas Aman is on the betochen. Even when you have nothing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of you. Now, besides saying the man, I noticed this year
It's not just
that
saying, it's not just sort of saying it's not the Parshas Aman is an understanding of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechalek et ha'ochel, it's not, I'm a bit, so
that's right. That's the idea.
It's a concept of like, I'm getting what I need, and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling me, this is what I need, I don't need more. So the Segulah is not saying, it's not a request box like for saying I'm going to get what I think I need. No, you have to be bitachon, and that is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, underlying what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that He's giving me what I need.
That's a very high
madrega.
That's a very high madrega. Most people, they don't want to rely on what HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks that they need.
That's what the words in
Yes.
the Parshas Aman are saying.
Yes.
They're not saying.
Yeah, but they say, I need what I think I need. that's the way.
But that's nonsense. Because that means I'm not relying
if it's a reasonable.
I'm telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu what I need, He doesn't know what I need. הנוסן לחם לכל בשור. אנחנו עושים את זה בברכת המזון. הנוסן לחם לכל בשור. Everybody gets exactly what they need.
That is a difficult subject, and I don't think I have the ability to speak about it right now. So what's tefillah? What am I davening for? I'm davening for what I need.
Realization.
I know tefillah is realization that everything's from Hashem, but I'm allowed to ask for things. I'm allowed to ask for things. I'm allowed to ask for things, and this is what that's a very difficult thing. Can I ask for luxuries, luxuries? So there's a famous Maisa. There's one with Chaim Volozhin, and there's another one with Yisro Salanter. Yisro Salanter says he had a machlokes with the Rishash. He was arguing the Rishash, can I have betochen? I'm going to get something which is a luxury. Not just what I need, but a luxury. Can I have betochen? Can betochen bring me? If I really have betochen, I'm going to get it. I really have a moon, I'm going to get it. Again, I take no responsibility for this. It's a Maisa which everybody knows. There's no source for it. I cannot find it. It's just a story that everybody is repeating over and over and over again. And Risa Salanta was arguing with the Rishash, and then they went back to learning. They had a kavrusa late at night in shul, and then a Russian soldier walked into the Beis Medrash, and he says, "Where's the Rav of the city?" The Rishash was the Rav of the city, and he says, "I want to give you my my watch. I'm afraid they drafted me into the army, and I'm afraid that the Russians are going to steal it from me. It's a gold watch. Here, I'm giving it to you as a present. At least the rabbi should have a gold watch, and I don't want this to get in the hands of the Russian soldiers." And then he ran out because he had to go back on duty. So the Rishash looked at the watch, and he looks and says, "Here, Salanta, this is for you. You said you can have betochen that you're going to get a gold watch. Here's your gold watch." And the same thing happened supposedly with the Chaim Volozhin. He used to have a...
Sonnenfeld went out and picked up a few gold coins out in the street.
Yeah, that's after his wife complained. His wife complained. He says, I can't take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. So he said, I guess her betochen is not as great as mine. So he went out in the street and he found a gold coin, and it was enough for him to have a few months of Parnossah. Yes, that's Yosef Chaim, but that was to get them out of poverty. That was to get them out of poverty. I mean, he's not talking about luxury of a gold watch.
Okay.
With the Gemara, there's a Gemara of Rava, and the daughter came to visit him, and there was a guy there that wanted to have meat. And
There was a Maisa with Rava, and there was an ani who had been a rich person. Yeah, he was a rich man who he went bankrupt, but he was used to eating, right? So he knocked on the door of Rava, the city, and he invited him in for lunch and says, what do you usually eat? I eat stuffed chicken and good old wine. That's what I used to. He says, listen, you're taking handouts from the Seaboard. I mean, like, you want the Seaboard to go broke because, of your high lifestyle. He says, you think that the Seaboard is giving me the food? The Kodesh Baruch Hu is giving me the food. He really believed it. Kodesh Baruch Hu is giving me the food. If this is what I need, this is what I need. Okay. Then in walks Rava's sister. He hadn't seen her in 22 years. His sister, and she brought him a present of stuffed chicken and old wine. And Rava took it and put it on the table. Okay, come, let's eat. Your supper's on the table. Your dinner's on the table. So, yeah. If you really have b'tachin, not only will you get, according to these stories, again, this is a shver. I take no responsibility. But this one is in the Gemara. So this one's in the Gemara. Something in the Gemara. Something in the Gemara I take responsibility for. The other stories about the gold watch are not in the Gemara. I take no responsibility for them. But can you have b'tachin, according to that, the Rishash and the Chaim Volozhin?
if it's not bad for you.
But if it's not bad for you. What do we daven? What's in the first bracha of Shmona Esrei? Hagomel chasodim toivim. What's Hagomel chasodim toivim? Sometimes the chesed is not good for you. Sometimes it's not good to get that chesed. Somebody wants to do you a chesed, and it's not good for you. Right? But a Kodesh Baruch Hu does a chesed, it's Hagomel chasodim toivim. Everything that Kodesh Baruch Hu does for you is for the good. Anyway, let's get back to this. So now, what is every Shabbos? Every Shabbos we do a reenactment of the mun. That's how important this mun is.
I think everybody can do it. Every time you go into the supermarket to buy, there's two ways to buy. If you go around and look, see what's on the shelves and think, oh yeah, I need that, and you see it. And there's another way of doing it. You make a list beforehand of what I need, and you go into the supermarket and you come out with only what's on the list. And I think that is
because that was the shir that I gave way at the beginning, the difference between Shimon Bar Yochai, and there are different levels of b'tachin, and depends upon your b'tachin. But we pass in Rabbi Yishmael, and we have to live in the natural world. That's Gemara Machlekes between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Yishmael about whether you have to do ishtadlus bichlal. Right? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says if you're a real Talmid Chacham and you're Tairasa Umnasai, and that's all you can sit and learn and not have to do any b'tachin at all. That's Shimon Bar Yochai, and we don't pass like that. The Gra passing like that. The Ramban passing like that. For if you're on that madrega, very few people are on that madrega, and for the majority, like 99% of the Yidden, we pass like Rabbi Yishmael. You got to do ishtadlus. You got to live in the normal world. Living in the normal world lives on a budget. Live on a budget. I know people who didn't live on a budget and they would just swipe the credit card, and then they got themselves into real problems. So, overdrawn on the credit card, and the credit card company, the bank comes to your house and they block your credit card. Live with seichel. That's normal people. But I'm saying, let's have b'tachin. The problem is when people, they work themselves too thin. When you work yourself thin, work normal hours. Your wife needs you. Your wife needs you. She wants to have you speak to you at supper. She wants to see your face. She wants to tell you. She's got to. Women like to, get out all the things that happened during the day. They got to get it out, and they need to verbalize and to vent. Women have to vent all the problems that happen to them. So, and you have to listen carefully and don't give eitzes. Just I hear, right? They want empathy. They don't want eitzes. They're very smart. They want empathy, and they need it. And your kids need attention. and a lot of TLC. They need a bedtime story, and they need to know that their daddy is there, and so you have to spend time with your kids. You have to make sure you spend time with your kids, and you have to have time to sit and learn. Lo nitna Torah ela oichlei amon. What's the whole purpose? The Chazal add, and they say, why did we get the man? So we should sit and learn. What did they do the whole day in 40 years in the desert? What did they do? Did they have to work? No. So if they didn't have to work, what did they have to do? Well, the first year they were building the Mishkan. Okay, so they had a lot of work to do building the Mishkan, Avodas HaKodesh. And then afterwards, so the Kahanim and the Leviim, they were involved in the Mishkan with the Korbanis. What did the rest of the people do?
Sat on the phones.
Right? They sat and learned. It was a tremendous nation. It was a tremendous nation of everybody sitting and learning. Lo nitna Torah ela la'oichlei amon. And this is what we have to learn from here. I said this last time that there's a sif in Shulchan Aruch about kaviyas itim l'Torah. You have to be kaveya itim l'Torah. Everybody has to have a chelik in the Torah. You have to be connected to the Torah. You want to be a fruma yid, you have to be connected to the Torah. If you're not connected to the Torah, it dissipates, and your whole level goes down. You can't. It's not possible. You have to have some sort of learning schedule, whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours. The Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Shach. He says the Balabatim used to only learn 3 hours. Nebuch. Let me show me Balabatim learn 1 hour today, and don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep during the Daf Yomi shir. They're all dozing off during the Daf Yomi shir. But at least go to some sort of shir, whether it's in the morning. Some people it's when you're fresh. If you can arrange your schedule and discipline yourself, get up in the morning and have a seder. If you can an hour. If you can go to a kollel for a couple of hours, a 2-hour kollel, a 3-hour kollel, that's even better. And Barak Manusa, if you do that, and then in the afternoon, and after you've been learning, and turn off your phone. The phone's it's the biggest Yetzer Hara. You got to turn off your phone while you're learning. Everybody's sitting in the base medrash, it goes beep, excuse me, turn off the phone, even if it's on silent, but it goes beep, buzz or vibrates or something, and you're right. That's famous. The guy's got a food. Just I'll be right back. Don't do that. Turn it off. Sit and learn and concentrate. Maybe you'll learn something. What are you going to learn? Whether you're going to learn Gemara, whether you're going to learn Halacha. Mishnah Berurah says if a person doesn't have time to learn, even Daf Yomi is a wonderful thing, but you have to learn halacha. You have to know what to do. Orach Chaim. Concentrate on Orach Chaim. A Seder in Mishnah Berurah. A Seder in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Something. Concentrate on learning halachas. Now every week we do a remembrance. Think about this next time you have on Shabbos. Every Shabbos we do a reenactment of the man. We take Lechem Mishnah, we put it on the table, and it says in Halacha, this is Halacha, brought down, you have to have a tablecloth. Well, we think we have a tablecloth because it's nice, and it's pretty, and it's proper. And we have a tablecloth because it says in Halacha, you have to have a tablecloth. And you have a challah dekel, you have the Lechem Mishnah has to be covered. Lechem Mishnah has to be covered. Why? Because there was dew. It was sandwiched in between dew on the bottom, on the ground, and there was dew on top, the tal on top. So it was sandwiched in. So in reenactment of that, and we take Lechem Mishnah, and right. I'm not getting into but this is halacha. It's brought down. Boitseya al shtei kikros. The Mechaber says Boitseya al shtei kikros. Mishnah Berurah brings down Zeichel Amon, Lechem Mishnah. And even Noshim, now very interesting, even Noshim, Mechuyavois Melechem Mishnah. Now he uses this word Mechuyavois. Lechem Mishnah is a chiyuv. Chazal want us to reenact the mun. They also had the nest of the mun. What was the nest of the mun? Now there's machlokes. What about shalosh shudas? Do you need lechem mishna by shalosh shudas? So the mechaber, the Ramah brings down a machlokes whether you need lechem mishna by shalosh shudas or is enough just one loaf of bread. So he says it's better yesh lahachmir to have. Ramah says yesh lahachmir to have lechem mishna. So l'chatchila we have lechem mishna at shalosh shudas. If you get stuck, you don't have. You can have one. Where does this come from? Where does this come from? So there's a sefer levush.
They have like two slices of bread.
Bidi Evid. Bidi.
One bread, one.
No, be better one shalim. A shalim is always better than a slice. Shlemus is shlemus. There's a mile of shlemus. That's the inyan of making a bracha. If you have a choice of making a bracha on a shalim, you got a little tiny roll, but a shalim, and you got a giant old loaf of bread that's been sliced already a little bit, but it's big. You make a bracha on the shalim. That's for the covet of the bracha. But there's a sefer levush. There's a sefer levush. He was a contemporary of the Ramah. He was going to write the sefer Ramah. He was going to write a hagos on the Shulchan Aruch like the Ramah did, but the Ramah beat him to it. The Ramah beat him to it, so he wanted to put it away. But we have also the sefer of the levush, and he brings down. And I found what he brings down in the Das Zakenim Bali Tosfos, quoting about the Bali Tosfos. The Bali Tosfos bring down this machlokes. Did they have lechem mishna by shalosh shudas? So what happened? They had lechem mishna. They got a double portion, and that was a miracle. That shows that Shabbos was min shemayim. Shabbos was a chiyuv. That they got every Friday they got lechem mishna. Friday they got lechem mishna. So what happened? So on Friday they got lechem mishna. So normally they had enough to make 2 loaves of bread. Let's say call it a loaf of bread. 1 loaf of bread was my breakfast, and they had a shir challah. Shir challah is around it's two and a quarter liter, 2 and a quarter for Americans quarts, 2 and a quarter liter. Because volume, the lechem, even it's a kilo 250. It's a kilo 250 according to Rav Abba Chaim Noah. So flour is half. It's a half the size of the weight. The weight of 2 liters is by flour is one kilo 1 kilo of flour. That makes 2 liters of 1 kilo of flour makes 2 kilo of volume, because that's the way the ratio is to volume to weight. Huh?
2 liters of flour in volume weighs 1 kilo.
That's right. So the shear. So they got the shear challah. They had a shear challah that they of this mun. And they split it up into half for the morning and half at night. They only two meals a day. I don't know where this 3 meals a day came from, somewhere along the line in Western society. But they only had 2 meals a day. So they had...
We have only 1 meal a day. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning, we finish at 8 o'clock at night.
No, that's a seafood diet. You know what a seafood diet is? If you see food, you eat it. Seafood diet. So they had 2 loaves of bread every day. They got double on Friday, right? They got double on Friday. So what they get? They had 4 loaves, 1 for Friday morning. Now for Shabbos they had 3 loaves bread left. So at night they had lechem mishna. In the morning they had lechem mishna. They ate, and by shalosh shudas they had only 1 left. They had 1 left. They ate shalosh shudas. They had 1 loaf left. So that's where the minute came from, that a lot of people only ate 1 loaf of bread on shalosh shudas. So says the Das Zakenim Bali Tosfos, my Rebbe, Mirinon, he said, no, shalosh shudas should have 2 loaves of bread. That's not what happened. They got, for Shabbos they had lechem mishna. If on weekday you had 2 loaves of bread, you got enough for 2 loaves of bread. On Shabbos you got lechem mishna, you got 4. So altogether they had 6. In other words, they didn't get double on Friday. They got enough for Shabbos to have 6 loaves of bread. They got 1 portion for Friday and a double portion. Every Shabbos they got a double portion. So therefore they had Lechem Mishnah for Friday morning, Friday evening, Shabbos morning, and Shalosh they still had Lechem Mishnah, and one loaf was left over from a loaf of Malka, I guess, right? So therefore, every Shabbos we reenact Parshas Aman, and that's what Parshas Aman is. It's a reenactment. And what's the purpose of the man? It says at the end of the Parshas of man, he says, put this in its synsenis. Put this in its synsenis. It always bothered me. It's everybody should show. If Yirmiyahu, he took it out and he showed Klal Yisrael. This is what they ate. So it always bothered me. You can't see through because Rashi says it was a cheres. It was a jar made out of cheres. Clay, yeah. An earthenware jar. I look in Torah Tamima, he says that's not the girsa. He found a girsa. He says it's chuchis. It was glass. It's a Torah Tamima. He says he quotes the Mechilta that the Rashi is quoting, and he found a translation that means it's the glass. It was in a glass bottle, and at the time of Yirmiyah, people weren't learning. It was right before the destruction, and he was trying to give them Musar. That shouldn't be a destruction. There should be the Klal Yisrael. He took out the flask of mun and he showed it to them. This is what you're complaining. You don't have time to learn. You don't have time to be kavei itim l'Torah. You're too busy with your Parnossah. Who gives you Parnossah? Look at this. This is the mun. The mun is in existence until today. Why is it in existence until today? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to take it out in the future and show it to us. Means the koyach, the koyach of the man is still in existence. The koyach of the man is still in existence, and the koyach of the man then was a nes golui, and now it's a nes nister, and we can have to tap on. That's why I say we read Parshas of man. You have to tap on to the koyach of the man, and in order to have and B'ez Hashem, you'll have a parnossah b'ravacha, and be able to be kavei in the Torah, and have a good week.
Wait, did you say that there's a halacha to have a tablecloth on the Shabbat table?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
What is it? Where does that come from?
The man on the bottom, it was tal on the bottom, and tal on top. So we have a challah dekel, but you have to have a tablecloth underneath.
Separate.
No, separate. No, yeah. So it's like it's covered on the bottom.